we're live.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good to see so many people in here, especially with a little bit of last minute notice here on this event. So very thankful for everyone to join. Hopefully everyone is aware by now, but Moonbeam launched in full yesterday. And that means that EVM and balance transfers are enabled. So in order to answer questions about that, as well as to celebrate this kind of milestone in Moonbeam's development, we have joining us today Aaron Evans, director of the Moonbeam Foundation, as well as Derek Yu, really, the founder of Moonbeam and the impetus behind everything that the network has been able to do for the last couple of years. So with that said, I'll kind of hand it over to them to go through some information, and then we'll address questions at the end.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks. And I can see all the people here, saying hello in the chat. So it's really nice to see everyone. I see some familiar faces. But I guess the first thing I would want to say is just to thank all of you, everyone in the community, for helping to make this launch a success. And I think we're going to play a little video here. This is with some of us getting together as we were working on some of these things. This is actually from when we did the first phase of the launch, when we started producing blocks on the network. So we can take a look at some of the pictures of us in the background here. But if I look at yesterday, really everything just went quite smoothly. There was a couple of minor infrastructure issues that we were grappling with, probably not something that anyone noticed. So these were couple things related to RPC endpoints and some other things as we were really getting a bunch of load on the system. But those things were all addressed within 10 minutes, when things were coming up. So yeah, really, I couldn't ask for a smoother launch. Really went quite well from our perspective. And just to underscore that, I got a note from one of our partners who was saying, his team was almost confused, right? His team was saying, launches are supposed to be these chaotic things where there's one thing after another breaking or, other things going wrong. And, he said his team was well, wait a minute, what's, we're kind of confused here. Everything looks green. Everything's, working as it should. This is not how these things go. And so I know Katie had made the comment that, or had shared this comment that, I think we're just, an experienced team at this point, and it was just great to see everything go by so, kind of go so smoothly. So one reason is the team. I don't know that there might not be anyone more experienced in the Polkadot ecosystem right now outside of Parity than the team we have here for launching something like a parachain. Another big reason is Kusama and Moonriver. I really, would say that was a huge advantage, coming into the Moonbeam launch, having gone through this whole process once, having made mistakes even that first time, having, learned what to do, how to do better. There's no substitute for real experience. And so that was, a huge advantage. And that's not a one-time thing either, by the way. This is something that will continue to be a big advantage for us, is having Moonriver as a place where features are deployed first. Getting experience there, will really ensure that deployments to Moonbeam are even that much more smooth, secure, reliable, and so on. So that's something that will continue to stay with us. But I would just end with the the community around the project, right? All of you that are here in the chat really helped make the community a success. To give an example, if you go to our Discord right now, you'll see ambassadors we have, in there, folks like Tourist, 4x4, Jose, Nikki, these, Gilang, some of these folks that are just a tireless force. It's helping, people answer questions and just helping kind of other community members. That's just a really strong, a sign of strength of the community here. And that's a big part of the success that we've had. So yeah, thanks to all of you, and I wanted to pass it on to Aaron so that he can talk about some things related to tokens. I know that the slide that we had here was just, I think most of you are aware that with the full go live yesterday, the system is fully operational now. So balance transfers, decentralized set of collators, keys, all of this is already in place. But Aaron, why don't you address some of the token distribution points?
Sure. Yeah. No. Great. Thanks. Yeah. And I think there's been a lot of questions in the community related to these things. So just thought it'd be helpful to kind of review the Glimmer token distribution to date and so forth and going forward. So firstly, shortly after network launch, almost immediately, the 30% of Crowdloan rewards were distributed to the participants. So if we recall, 15% of the Genesis supply makes up the Crowdloan to secure our slot. And so 30% of those rewards were distributed, and the remaining 70% will vest or have already started vesting, but vest over a 96-week lease period, for our the slot that we've secured. So that vesting began December 17th. So in addition to the 30%, there is a certain amount of rewards that are also claimable by participants. And you should use the Moonbeam DApp to claim. Now, of course, if you participated through an exchange, it's very important to know that the exchanges, they have their own procedures and mechanisms for distributing the initial 30%. As well as in terms of claiming those rewards. Now, as I mentioned, the remaining 70% vest over the 96-week period, and they vest linearly block by block. So these it wouldn't be practical to push, with every block. That would be crazy. So the amount that claims will kind of build up, and you can, periodically, if you participated, use the Moonbeam DApp to claim any sort of built up rewards. The exchanges, they may sweep them in at different periods. And if you have questions related to exchanges, you need to please speak with the support teams over at those exchanges, because they'll have those details. We can't really provide those answers. And then I guess, the other thing I'd like to touch on, I think, it's been a really exciting year, 2021 was obviously a super exciting year with lots of things going on with Moon River. And then, of course, the Moonbeam Crowdloan, and also our Take Flight event. So I think sometimes people confuse these two things. So the Take Flight event was our community event that we held back in September, I believe it was, early September. And so from a token distribution perspective, we talked about the Crowdloan rewards, but the next, and they'll continue to vest, but the next tranche that will be in circulation will be the Take Flight rewards. And those will be distributed, it's 40 days after launch. So those will be distributed on February 20th. And that, as a reminder, represents approximately 10% of Genesis supply. And if you have any sort of questions, or if you would like to learn more about, those allocations and so forth, please, visit the Moonbeam Foundation website, and you can take a look at the tokenomics for the Glimmer and the Moon River tokens.
Great, thanks, Aaron. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what the path forward looks like for us. I know there may be some folks joining us here that are newer to Moonbeam and Moon River. So I wanted to spend a moment here talking about what we expect to see on Moonbeam in particular. So probably the most important point I would make is that Moonbeam really will follow in the footsteps of Moon River. Or said another way, if you look at what's happened on Moon River, that gives you a bit of a preview into what's going to happen on Moonbeam. So when Moon River was first launched, there's a few different phases of rollouts that start to happen. The first of those is infrastructure. And so the exact same thing is going to happen on Moonbeam in terms of deployment of critical infrastructure. I would say that's primarily bridges right now. So there's There are a number of bridging teams that are deploying. In fact, the first bridging bridge that I'm aware of that's already deployed is Nomad. So there is the Nomad bridge is up and running, connecting Ethereum mainnet to Moonbeam. And Explorers, if I go to Explorers, Block Scout is operational now. Moonscan is being tested as we speak. So a lot of these same tools that are present on Moonriver are in the process of rolling out, or in some cases already have rolled out on Moonbeam. In general, I would say that the deployment of all of these infrastructural components is going to go much faster on Moonbeam than it did on Moonriver, simply because all of these different teams have already had experience deploying on Moonriver first. And so it's really just a repeat of those same integrations, for Moonbeam, just switching out a few parameters. So I do expect kind of the bootstrapping of the whole Moonbeam ecosystem to happen faster than was the case on Moonbeam, given the experience that not just us, but all of these other teams have in deploying. Other critical pieces of infrastructure that are expected quite soon here is our implementation of the Gnosis Safe, a fork of the Gnosis Safe protocol. That's a critical component, particularly for DAOs and for other protocols to deploy. That took some time on Moonriver, but that will be present shortly on Moonbeam, as well as the graph-based services. A lot of protocols rely on the graph or covalent for indexed like API services. So both of those will be available soon on Moonbeam. And so, quite exciting to see, all of this movement, start more or less immediately from when Moonbeam fully launched yesterday. We started seeing, a lot of activity from different teams performing deployment actions, deploying different components, these infrastructure components. I think even if I look, there's even in the DeFi space, Zenlink I saw is already operational on Moonbeam. We expect more DEXs to deploy as well in short order here. So again, everything that happened on Moonriver is going to happen on Moonbeam, but just at a faster pace. And so one important question that I wanted to touch on here is the question is kind of how is it that you can engage, right? And then maybe also in that question is, what can you do, like with now that the system's operational, that, the crowd loans, some of these initial crowd loan distributions have happened, what is it that you can do? One thing that is that I would point people to is certainly there is the foundation has created, again, extended its existing application that had support for Moonriver, has been extended to support Moonbeam. So you can visit the main foundation dApp for doing things like staking. That's all fully operational, just like it was on Moonriver out the door. And but there are also as these different integrations deploy, I would just keep an eye on Twitter in particular. You're going to start to see a pretty rapid pace of announcements as different protocol teams are deploying, and each of those offers an opportunity for something interesting to do on Moonbeam. Interacting with either DeFi protocols, we'll see on the NFT side as well. I expect more things to start happening there. That was the big surprise on Moonriver, and I expect to see additional activity on Moonbeam that will probably be surprising and interesting. The ambassador program, this is something that I sometimes forget to talk about, but for those of you that are new to the ecosystem, we do have a very active ambassador program, and we would encourage you, if you're interested in engaging more with the team, learning more about the project, to apply to be an ambassador. Really, there is quite a bit of our community has been built from joining that ambassador program, and so a lot of great connections to be made there, and a lot of great learnings that come from joining that program. So let me talk for a minute here about more of the technical side or the product side of what we're doing in 2022 and what the roadmap looks like. And I would say, the title on the slide is interoperability. So I want to kind of step back, and I know many of you are maybe new to or not have spent as much time with us. Maybe you're just tuning in because of participating in the Moonbeam crowdloan or possibly take flight. So I wanted to give some context here to explain, how we view things and what our vision is, and then some of the actual features and other things we're working on. I think will make more sense if you have the context of this broader vision. So the first point is that, from the start, we've had this vision of being relevant in a multi-chain world. So when we started the project, that was a little less obvious because back then almost everything was just happening on Ethereum. But if you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, I think it's become increasingly clear that that's correct. We're in this permanently multi-chain kind of environment, and so that's really a reason why we even built Moonbeam on Polkadot in the first place. Polkadot has these very unique advantages when it comes to a multi-chain environment. The end state or the end goal vision that I have is that I believe we're at the very beginning of a big shift from developers thinking about just deploying to single chains and what I call a mono-chain deployment to creating and deploying applications that span multiple chains, multiple specialized chains. And we're honestly just at the very, very beginning of this. Us launching on Polkadot as the first, at least non-public good parachain, is a sign. This is something that's just happening now. And so ultimately, I think that what's going to happen over the next couple of years is there is going to be this big, big shift as people take advantage of multi-chain architectures in their applications. It's going to be a way that they can really extend the kinds of services they create, improve the performance, improve the throughput. It's really going to change a lot about what it means to create applications, Web3 applications. And in that context, the role I see Moonbeam playing is providing a set of services that developers can use to be very productive when they're building these things. The mental model I have, and sometimes the way I describe it, is think of something like AWS. For a Web2 developer, AWS is this incredibly powerful set of services that you can point and click and come into and use to construct these really highly scalable applications with great ease. And I think that there's something needed like that to help developers build Web3 applications. And so the vision is to have something that looks like AWS, but it consists of all Web3 services. And my belief is that Polkadot is really uniquely positioned to as a place to build these kinds of services. And so when you think about it that way, the work that we've done on Moonbeam and providing EVM compatibility is a very important step. It opens up a lot of ease of use for developers to deploy applications, but it's really only the first step in a longer process. So the EVM and the work that we've done here on Moonbeam, you can think of it like almost like a general compute, a place where a Web3 developer can express logic. But I expect there to be many other specialized chains and services that developer may want to interact with or combine with. And so that's the picture or the context that I want you to have in mind as you're thinking about Moonbeam. The core EVM and smart contract functionality that we have on Moonbeam is a core component of this, but there's going to be other integrations and other components that are part of this vision on the longer term. And so one of the first of those pieces I'll actually talk about now is something that is really imminently going to be released. And so that is the new XC20 standard that we've been working on. So what is an XC20? An XC20 is a substrate or Polkadot-based token. It can be interchanged with other parachains on either Kusama or Polkadot. But once it lives on something like Moonbeam, it will appear to developers there as an ERC20. So from the EVM on either Moonriver or Moonbeam, a developer can interact with these cross-chain tokens using just as if they're local, right? As if they're familiar ERC20 tokens like you would find on Ethereum. So again, we think this kind of combines the best of both worlds. You have this ability to work with all of this existing tooling and smart contracts that are already designed to work with ERC20s will be fully compatible. But under the hood, it's the substrate level asset that can be moved around between any other parachains. And so that's going to be that's one of the first features we're delivering as part of this broader vision of extending this base EVM with cross-chain capabilities that are uniquely powered by Polkadot. The first of those is going to be XeKSM. So that's, again, on Moonriver is where things happen first. So on Moonriver, we'll see XeKSM, basically the ability for users to move KSM tokens from the Kusama relay chain onto Moonriver and back. And we have actually a second asset lined up, which is the first asset we'll be supporting from a parachain. So that is the Remark token from the StateMine parachain that's part of the Kusama network. That'll be a second asset. And then we have a number of other integrations that we'll be doing with other parachain teams to help facilitate this bidirectional token transfer scenario using the XEM functionality, the built-in cross-chain interoperability features that Polkadot and Kusama both have built into them. And so I think this is going to be something that you'll see throughout the year, is just extended use of XEM. This first scenario is token transfers. We have other scenarios that are imminently coming as well. So we do have what I'd call more functional scenarios, where from a smart contract on Moonbeam, you can remote control or call functions on other chains. That's at the core of the use case for the Lido team and what they're trying to accomplish. Also, we'll be looking at the other way in, right? So you might be the case that you're on another parachain, things are happening there, you want to invoke smart contracts actions on Moonbeam. So that would be kind of in the inbound direction. This is all basic, primitives are being built to allow for the construction of these multi-chain scenarios or multi-chain apps that have a multi-chain architecture. So we're going to be pushing quite hard on this interoperability theme throughout the year. This is something that is unique really to Moonbeam, right? It's something that we can do because we're a parachain on Polkadot that other chains that are standalone chains can't do, right? If you think about it, even for this EVM functionality, the easiest thing that we could have done was just forked one of the existing EVM implementations and had a standalone chain. Well, we wouldn't have any of this cross-chain interoperability in that case. So that's really the door that's open to us because we're built in Substrate as a parachain and connected to this larger network of other chains. So look out for features both in the short term that are being released based on XCM, as well as you'll see this throughout the year as we're pushing harder on XCM-based features to interoperate with other chains. So yeah, I'm not gonna go through XCM again, but I would just say that we expect quite a bit of activity on Moonbeam itself. I think what we've seen on Moonriver is definitely a leading indicator of what we expect to see on Moonbeam. I can tell already that there's a lot of a lot of people that are working on deployments now, which is great to see. And we see our role really as providing an on-ramp. We can help onboard both developers and users into the .sama ecosystem and via Moonbeam to the Polkadot ecosystem. And we provide some familiarity with existing things, like you can use MetaMask as your wallet. You don't have to switch wallets. But once you're here on Moonbeam, then people start looking around and saying, oh, well, what is it to be a parachain? And what are the other integrations with other chains we have? And so it leads people to understand more about Polkadot, about Kusama. And so that's a little bit of the role that we see. So maybe I'll stop there and we can start to look at some questions that have come in.
All right, guys, let's start going through this. Am I unmuted? Yes. So there's a mix of technical and non-technical questions in here. We'll just kind of take them as they come in. So this first one that I see here is about Moonbeam's transactions per second. And so for those who are unfamiliar with Moonriver, we've learned quite a bit from that. Maybe you can take that question, Derek, about Moonbeam's TPS right now and then how that will improve over time.
Yeah. So this is a question that comes up. This is something also, as you mentioned, that has come up in the context of Moonriver. Both Moonriver and Moonbeam are running in what I'd call a reduced throughput state right now. Part of the reason for that is that there's a big unlock of execution speed that we will get with something called contextual execution. That's a feature that's on the relay chain. So just to explain that for a moment, the limiting factor right now that limits transaction throughput is the amount of time that parachain blocks have to be kind of processed by the relay chain validators. So right now, that number is around, let's call it like 350 milliseconds or so per block. That, you know, and that's kind of this like small number, but it's going to be expanded a lot, like with this contextual execution feature. So this is something that was always in Parity's plan. And so we're just working right now within this constraint of this 350 milliseconds of execution time. Which will be expanded out to, I think it's 3,000 or 4,000. I mean, some like large amount more execution time once this contextual execution feature comes in. So for right now, and it's not that we don't, you know, we can definitely support quite a bit of load now, but we're looking at like a large increase as that change comes into place. I'd probably say we've done a number of other optimizations on Moonriver, particularly given some of the experiences we had there with different apps. Deploying that we're creating load on the system. It might be that you know, we're probably in some state, let's call it like 10 TPS, something like this right now. So it is in this kind of artificially low state, but we expect, you know, that to increase substantially once we have this contextual execution in place.
Great. So moving on to the next question, I'll give you this one, Aaron. The question is specific to buying Glimmer with DOT. But just in general, you know, are there recommendations in terms of where and how to obtain Glimmer if you didn't participate in these other events?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, you know, Glimmer can be obtained on a variety of exchanges. If you would like to know which ones, we would encourage you to visit, say, CoinMarketCap, and there a list of exchanges and trading pairs can be discovered there.
Great. This next one is pretty wide open. I'll give this to you, Derek, but I think you can go in a variety of directions with this. How has the journey been to become the most powerful Ethereum compatibility smart contract platform?
Oh, geez. So I don't know if I wouldn't use the term powerful, but I will comment on the, you know, on the journey. Like there's, you know, we've been on this journey for a couple of years now. I mean, a lot of the team has been working on this for 2 years. So, you know, it has been kind of incredible to see it come to life. You know, yesterday was a big milestone for the team, and I mean, you know, well, if just to think about like the feelings I have about this, if I think about like the team that's been assembled in that 2-year time, the community that's kind of come around the project, I mean, that's something I couldn't have guessed at 2 years ago. I mean, it really has been an incredible thing, and I think when it comes to this EVM compatibility, we made an early bet on that, and that I think that product idea has turned out to be correct. So you know, there's a lot of other chains that are offering different technology stacks for implementation. Some of them, you know, we're using ourselves. I mean, we're using Substrate, which is extremely powerful. But you know, our belief is that this Ethereum tech stack is not going anywhere anytime soon. There's just a huge install base, knowledge base, you know, infrastructure tools, other things. So it's quite difficult for me to see any future that doesn't have that as one of the primary tech stacks in it. So I think that bet has turned out to be fruitful and gives us this great jumping off point for these other multi-chain efforts that I spoke about earlier.
Similarly, on that topic, we actually had an article we saw posted by one of our investors, Arrington Capital, that was talking about this, about kind of identifying this Ethereum compatibility trend very early on and being kind of at the forefront of that. So I'm going to go ahead and share that link in the chat here for others to see if they would like to. On sort of a similar question here, there's kind of, you know, I guess maybe both of you can address this, but like, did you expect Moonbeam and Moonriver to become so large so quickly? How does the reality of launching these two protocols compare to expectations for each?
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm gonna have to give this to you because I mean, I didn't know what really have any expectations. I think would be what I would answer, and you know, continually amazed. But I don't know. I'm gonna defer to you, Derek.
I mean, I've already expressed my sense of wonder at like where we are now. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted that. But I think it's a combination of many things, right, coming together. By the way, one of them is like luck, right? So I do think that there is timing and luck play a role in some things. You can't know whether what you're doing is going to pan out. But I mean, for me, it's this combination of the great team that we have, combined with timing and kind of making this big bet on the Polkadot ecosystem and substrate, like at a time when it wasn't that clear that was going to like work out. It obviously did. And I think that when I look towards the future, I think that we have this like huge opportunity in front of us as this shift happens from single chains to multi chains. You already see it happening. There's like there's dozens and dozens of bridging protocols and these other people that are realizing this. But I think we're just extremely well positioned now to be at the forefront of that shift as it happens. Not only with like the core technology ourselves, being part of Polkadot, but also having been in the space for long enough to find a great set of like partners to work with that will be able to extend the reach for developers like outside of the Polkadot ecosystem to other chains. And I mean, what's the secret? I mean, there is no secret. It's just staying focused on something, delivering like a high quality product, understanding who your customer is. I mean, for us, that's a developer, right? Everything we do, we're thinking about the developer experience, like the developer, what it is that they want, and how do we make their experience not full of friction and kind of enjoyable. And so I think just staying focused on that, delivering a high quality product, understanding who your customer is, catering to them. These sound obvious, but I think sometimes people forget about these things. So that's the secret. If so there isn't a secret. That's the secret, is just to do those things.
There is a second part to this question, which is around the communities. How can we bring them together? Are there any sort of initial ideas or indications of how we can join and have the Moon River and Moonbeam communities work together rather than compete?
Yeah. So, I would say that I like to think of this as being one family and not two separate communities. I've used the analogy before of siblings, right? So there's like this brother and sister, and they're not the same person, and maybe they have different ideas about things and like and dislike different things, but in the end they all are part of the same family, and in some ways one can't be like be successful without the other. And I already see that there's a lot of project teams that are planning dual deployments. So they will be deployed to both Moon River and Moonbeam. And we have done some analysis on who the like token holders are, like in community, and there's a lot of overlap there. Part of it coming from the fact that folks that were supporting the crowd loan on Moonbeam were given priority access to take flight. So that was one intentional like way of doing that. But nevertheless, we do see this strong overlap, even if the Moonbeam community in terms of holders is larger. So I will always be working to encourage that kind of crossover, if you want to call it that. But I really see it as, from our perspective, it's one community in a way. And as I was mentioning before, just we have this deployment process. So when we're working on changes, and you don't even see the start of it. The start of it is like on these internal like development environments we have, where we're trying out features, making sure it works. And we have an integration environment. There's all these different environments that something flows through. There's like a funnel. And then at some point it goes to Moon River, and okay, great. So then it's on Moon River, and we let it stay there for, let's say, a couple of weeks, and then that same thing will move to Moonbeam. But there's this whole kind of conveyor belt process of moving features and work through through this kind of whole process. And you can't kind of not have Moon River or Moonbeam. They're just part of the same process of how things are getting like shipped and released. So it's all part of like the same system from our perspective in that sense.
Yeah, it's great. It's hard, I think, for people who are new to this way of doing things in Polkadot to kind of see that duality, but it's going to be really interesting to watch that unfold over the coming years. Let me jump a little bit just because we have quite a few questions coming in. We've talked about XCM and XC20s. What does the timeline look for Moonbeam? And then, which parachains is Moonbeam working to establish kind of these connections with?
Yeah. So yeah, on this XC20, I mean, I am pretty excited about that. I will allow for movement of assets that are elsewhere in the Kusama ecosystem onto Moonriver and Moonbeam, but also the reverse. So like movement outbound of assets from Moonriver and Moonbeam out to other parachains. And you might ask, well, does that that's Mover and Glimmer, right? But no, I think there's other assets that are going to be moving out. In fact, I think that we'll start to see that Moonriver and Moonbeam could act as kind of let's say a port and distribution center, right, where people are creating assets on Moonriver or Moonbeam. It makes sense to do so because there's all this rich set of services that you have at your disposal locally. But then you might also have those assets move out to other parachains. And so, we're quite excited about that. I mentioned the first couple that are, right at the cusp of release. You'll be seeing something quite shortly here about this. Our KSM, for one, so that's an integration with the relay chain, and Remark, which is an integration to state mine on Kusama. But remember, the idea here is that features that land on Moonriver, it's just a matter of time before they land on Moonbeam. So there'll be the analog to XCKSM is XC.dot, right, on Moonbeam. So anything that you see happening on Moonriver, expect to see that in relatively short order on Moonbeam.
I'll give this one to you, Aaron, just kind of to combine a few of these questions. People are asking things like how to claim crowdloan rewards from Kraken, how do crowdloan rewards work, and how can I transfer from Binance? Do you have any kind of pointers for those sorts of questions?
Yeah, again, similar to my comments further. I mean, I think you really need to follow up with the exchanges themselves, as each of them are handling things a little bit differently, including kind of when they're going to open up withdrawals. How the claims process works on a go forward basis, how those will be deposited into people's accounts. Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have all those answers, but it's just not practical for us to be in the middle there.
Absolutely. And the logistics, I think, become complicated. Things change day by day, so we're just always going to recommend connecting with those folks. Okay, so just jumping back a little bit, we talked about collator staking. That is something that's currently live on Moonbeam today. Derek, can you address any risks with collator staking, and then maybe just talk briefly about other forms of staking as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of folks are familiar with the staking functionality from Moonriver. So it does work more or less exactly the same. There are a different set of collators there. And by the way, I did want to give like a shout out to like our collator community on both Moonriver and Moonbeam. But the collator community on Moonbeam, it wasn't all the pure stake team that were doing things yesterday. The collators on Moonbeam just did awesome, basically, right? So they're crushing it. It's like a super sophisticated and engaged community there that have been a big part of how smooth the launch went. A lot of the folks that were selected to be the initial collators, they helped support a whole bunch of load tests and other things on our Moonbase Alpha testnet. And kind of the people that performed the best out of those tests then became the ones selected to help us launch the network. And really when I wanted to give a shout out to those folks. For staking though, it's the Foundation DApp, right? So you go to the Foundation DApp. Now there's multiple networks there. So there's Moonbeam, there's Moonriver, and I believe there's Moonbase Alpha test option as well. So you just got to be conscious of which network you're connected to, and then it'll be quite familiar to anyone who's used the Moonriver-based DApp, where you connect MetaMask. You have some concept of you can claim rewards from the Crowdloan, and then you can immediately stake them. You select collators that you can stake against. There is no slashing in the system, so that is something that is different relative to other, or if you compare, for example, to the relay chain staking against validators there. So there is, that risk is not there. But you do want to, there is, when selecting collator, if you're selecting a collator that's not producing blocks, for example, you won't get any reward. So there is still this element of, you got to kind of research a bit and kind of know who's doing a good job. And those are the folks that you'll likely want to delegate to.
I'm just going to do 2 more questions since we're just not going to have time to get through quite all of these. Another one for you, Derek. So we have this 96-week lease on Polkadot. What happens in 2 years if the question's phrased not if we're not selected for the first parachain batch, but I think can maybe just talk through the renewal process and how we expect that to look.
Yeah, the renewals. I would be honest and say that like we have not worked through all the technical details of renewals yet, but we will be doing that soon. Not to sound like a broken record, but that is coming up on Moon River in the May timeframe, I believe. So believe it or not, we're halfway, or are we more than halfway through? I think we're more than halfway through the Moon River 48-week period. So just as with everything else, we're going to tackle that challenge on Moon River first, and I'm sure that will inform us as to what it is that we need to do for Moonbeam. Of course, this is existential, so to renew and make sure we stay as a parachain is an existential and most important thing. We have a whole bunch of things that have already been put in place to make sure, for example, one of the things we have is a parachain bond reserve. We have a portion of new issuance that's going into this bond reserve. All of that is designed to make sure that we have the necessary tokens that are needed to be able to have a winning bid and renew our slot. So some of those things have been thought of in advance, but I think the technical implementation parts are something that we're looking to tackle soon here. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's also changes in this area from the parity side. That the renewals hasn't been a focus for them either. So there's probably features and functions that will be added and refined as we get close to the renewals on Kusama.
Great. And so I'll combine these last 2 questions into one, which is, how does Moonbeam compare to other options? So ETH 2.0 is mentioned, Avalanche and Phantom are both mentioned. When developers are looking at those, how do they choose?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of points I'd make there is that, we do in Polkadot, right? If Polkadot itself is a layer 0, then we are a layer 1. So we have all of the same, features, functions, and potential as another layer 1 would be. So I think there is no reason that Moon River and Moonbeam can't be just as big as some of the other chains you mentioned, that are getting real developer traction. So I'd say that the list you mentioned are probably some great examples of chains that have gotten developer traction. Interestingly, all 3 of those chains, so Phantom and Avalanche, Polygon, I'd say, all also have taken this Ethereum compatibility approach. So I do think that that's one thing that's happened in the market is chains that have taken that approach have gotten a disproportionate amount of the developer traction. My belief is, though, that this EVM compatibility is almost becomes kind of a table stakes, right? So yes, you need to have EVM compatibility. That's just what developers want, and that gets you in the door. The question is what you do above and beyond that. What I see a lot of other chains doing is they're saying, well, okay, our consensus is a little bit faster. We have slightly more transactions or less, or our decentralization. They have these kind of features they're trying to differentiate on. And this is where I really have strong conviction about the Polkadot vision, that it's just going to provide a kind of interoperability that those other chains cannot provide. I mean, this has been deeply thought through for many years about how one can create a network of connected blockchains, and it's native on Polkadot. And I think so. I combine that with this belief that there's this big shift that's going to happen to having apps that span multiple blockchains. That's the key differentiator for us, right? Is we have all the same development features these other chains have, but we also have because we're part of Polkadot, we have this native networking capability to connect to all kinds of other interesting services. And I think it's going to be very hard for those other chains to do something similar.
I tend to agree. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. We obviously have a lot more work to do and have many more things to explain. So we're opening back up our Telegram channel, which was temporarily muted. If folks have other questions, they're welcome to go there. We'll drop a link in the chat here shortly. But thank you to both Aaron and Derek for joining us. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I think it was helpful. We'll certainly continue to do more of these as Moonbeam sort of progresses through this launch, post-launch stage.
I guess I'll just end and just again give my thanks to everyone who helped like make this a success. There's been so many people. It's like I mentioned the ambassadors before, the collators, all the development teams that have done all this great work, like deploying to Moon River and Moonbeam. I mean, it's just that's like been the amazing thing to me, and it's yeah. I mean, it's just really like motivational. Just to have this sense of purpose that we're working on something that is important. And yeah, so I think that's my wife sometimes gets mad at me. She's like, "Oh, you like work too much," and I'm like, "But I'm working on like I'm building like the next version of the internet here. Like it can't it can't wait." So that's I just like love like all the like all the support that we've gotten getting to this point, and joining us on this mission to help make Web3 multi-chain.
Great.
Absolutely.
We'll leave it there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.